Okay, today's daf is Shabbat Nun Gimel. Today, in honor of Yom HaZikaron, we will dedicate our learning to all those who've given their lives to the state of Israel. The shir is also dedicated by Cliff and Minifelig in memory of their aunt Laura Tretin, who passed away recently. We're going to start at the Mishnah at the bottom of Nun Bet Amud Aleph, Nun Bet Amud Bet. We're continuing along with animals and what things animals can or can't go out with on Shabbat. So a donkey can go out. Unfortunately, we're not going to understand a lot of things in this Mishnah yet. Rashi's even not going to understand them. He's going to say we'll get to it later in the Gemara. But we'll understand a few of them. The chamor can go out with a mirdat. What's a mirdat? It's a cloth, a saddle cloth, they call it. Apparently, they put it either over the saddle or in the place where the saddle is. And Rashi explains that they did it, and we're going to see this from the Gemara later, to keep the animal warm. If the animal was cold, then they would put this on the animal to warm up the donkey. As long as, the Mishnah says, Bizman sheik shurabo. Okay, it sounds like as long as you tie it around the animal, what's the issue with that? Well, we don't want it to fall off. We're worried if it falls off in the public space, right? What will happen? Well, then the owner will come to pick it up, and therefore it has to be tied on, although we'll see later that we're going to understand this a little bit differently. Scharim yotzim levuvim. Okay, we are not going to yet understand what this is, but the male animals can go out levuvim. The richelot, the females, yotzot shchuzot, kvulot, ukvunot. We're going to leave these aside right now, not yet understand what they are. Hayizim, the female goats, yotzot tzurot. Tzurot means that they bind their udders. We're going to see that there were various reasons why they did this. Rashi explains that they did it in order to dry out their milk if they wanted to get pregnant again. That's one option. Or if they wanted to fatten them up, okay, they would it seems drying the milk would fatten them up. And other times they would do this in order to catch the milk that comes out. It wasn't that they bound them, it was that they actually tied something to there so that it would catch the milk that comes out so that it wouldn't drip all over, they wouldn't lose the milk, kind of like a woman expresses, something like that. Okay, they would catch it. So they're allowed to go out with their udders bound, basically. Rabbi Yossi oser b'kulan chutz min ha'rechelin hakfunot. He forbids all of this, other than the rechelim hakfunot, which we'll get to. Rabbi Yehuda omer izim yotzot tzruvot liyabesh aval lo lechalek. So we have three opinions here about the udders. Right? Rabbi Yossi doesn't allow it at all. Tanakama allows it entirely, and Rabbi Yehuda distinguishes between doing it for drying up the milk or doing it in order to get the milk. If you do it to get the milk, that's a problem. If you're doing it to dry up the milk, for whatever reason you're doing that, either to fatten them up or so that they get pregnant, well, that's allowed. Okay, so it depends what reason you're doing it. So the Gemara starts off and says, Amar Shmuel. Shmuel now says, V'hu shekshura bo. V'hu shekshura lo me'erev Shabbat. Shmuel says, this is all allowed. When we say chamor yotzei b'mirdat b'zman shekshura bo, it means if it was kshura bo me'erev Shabbat, meaning you can't put the mirdat on the animal, this saddle cloth, on Shabbat. You can only, if it was on from before Shabbat, you can leave it on Shabbat, and the animal can walk out with this on. So Rashi says, okay, it doesn't appear on this daf, it appears on Nun Dalet Amud Bet, because we'll see why Nun Dalet Amud Bet in a minute, because there's almost a continuation of this Mishnah on Nun Dalet Amud Bet. So Rashi says the issue is that if you put it on Shabbat, then again it becomes an issue of a masoi, a burden, rather than malbush. If it's wearing it from before Shabbat, then obviously that's kind of the clothing of this animal. If you put it on Shabbat, then it becomes in the category of a masoi, of a burden. There's a debate among the Rishonim about whether Rashi views this as an Isur Midoraita, this is really Hotza'ah because it's really a Masoi, or does it just appear to be a Masoi in which it's D'Rabbanan? So there's a debate whether Rashi views this as a Doraita problem or a D'Rabbanan problem. Tosfot disagrees with Rashi. If you look at the first Tosfot on the page, on the third line of Tosfot, he explains a different reason. And according to Tosfot, it's clearly only D'Rabbanan in nature, not rabbinic, but by the rabbis. Tosfot says it becomes an issue, and he's going to bring two different reasons, that it looks like something that's wrong. So, which we're going to see a lot of in Shabbat and all over Shas. There's always, if you do this, it might look like this. So he says, it looks like you're trying to carry the cloth and you're throwing it on your donkey, and your donkey's going to walk, and it looks like you're trying to get your cloth taken to a different place on Shabbat. And that's why it appears as if you're trying to carry this item, and that's why it's forbidden. But that's only Rabbanit in nature and not D'oraita. The second Tosfot brings on the last line is, it's mechse ki'ilu mitkaven leholicha be'ema lemakom rachok. It looks like you're putting on the saddle cloth, it looks like you're going on a long journey. So again, if anything that you do on Shabbat is going to make it appear as if your intent is to go do something forbidden, and that's why Tosfot thinks it's a problem, rather than Rashi, who views it as proper. This is carrying, right? Because this is not a malbush. It's, again, whether it appears to be a masoy, it is a masoy. It's a bit of a debate, but Tosfot definitely takes it to what it looks like. Rashi seems to say, no, this is actually a problem in and of itself. So anyways, the first thing to know is that Shmuel says this Mishnah is only if you tied it on Erev Shabbat. If it was tied on later, it would have. If you put it on Shabbat, it wouldn't work. So the kshuralo appears to be in the Mishnah. Kshurabo, not necessarily tied on the animal. What it means is it was, yes, it has to be tied, but more importantly, it has to have been tied from before Shabbat, which again fits in very nicely with, these are all the Mishnayot that are talking about preparations one has to do before Shabbat comes in. Make sure you put your saddle cloth on if you want the animal to have it on Shabbat. Amar Rav Nachman, Matnita Nami Daika. We can also prove this reading from the Mishnah itself. The Katane, as it says, and this is where it appears on Yun Daled Amud Bet. The Mishnah there says, Ein hachamor yotzei b'merdat she'ein kshuralo. The donkey can't go out. This is the opposite of our Mishnah, right? The donkey can't go out with a saddle cloth that was not tied on. So the Gemara says, Hey chidami, what's the case of that Mishnah? If it's not tied on at all, well, pshita, then it's obvious, and it's certainly obvious from this Mishnah, and it's just obvious in general. Anything not tied on can't be on the animal because dilma nafla atala tuyet. That's one of our main concerns here. If it might fall off, then we're worried. Right? Animals move all the time, and they jerk things, and they jerk around, and maybe it'll fall off. And if it'll fall off, the owner will come to put it back on. So that's not, it can't possibly be what the Mishnah is. So therefore, the Mishnah there must be elalav she'ena kshura lo me'erev Shabbat. What it means is it wasn't tied on from before Shabbat. Bichlal, and from here you can infer if that wasn't tied on from erev Shabbat. Reisha, our Mishnah is shekshura lo me'erev Shabbat shmamina. So this was just a way to prove Shmuel's reading. It must be that's the way to read our Mishnah. And furthermore, we have a braita. Okay, maybe they're worried in case you didn't think that Shmuel was really the pshat of the Mishnah. They're going to bring another braita that says that explicitly. Chamor yotzei b'merdat. Remember, a braita is just another source from the Tanaitic time period. We often bring them because if our Mishnah isn't 100% clear what it's talking about, but if we have a braita that says the exact same thing that we think our Mishnah means, then we can prove our Mishnah, right? Often the braita disagree with the Mishnah, but the assumption here is that this is just describing exactly what our Mishnah is describing, just the Mishnah didn't describe it in enough words. So chamor yotzei b'merdat b'zman shekshura lo me'erev Shabbat. The chamor can go out with a merdat. Here it says it explicitly, when it's tied on from before Shabbat. The lo be'ukaf, here it just goes on with some other issues, not with a saddle though, af al pi shekshura lo me'erev Shabbat. According to Tanakam of this braita, a saddle, no, just the saddle cloth, which is warming the animal, but a saddle, which we're going to see later, is either, first of all, why not a saddle? Because it looks like you're going to ride the animal, or we usually put a saddle on to protect the animal from a burden you're putting on the animal. So therefore, you can't do that, even if it was tied from Erev Shabbat. No, it's actually fine as long as the saddle was on it before, because sometimes the saddle is used, actually, we're going to see later, to protect the animal from the sun, which is also tsar for the animal, right? As long as something is painful for the animal, it seems, although we're going to debate this, it seems you're allowed to do it on Shabbat. So, okay, as long as you don't tie it on under its body, basically, like by its chest, or you shouldn't tie it onto its tail. Now, what's the reason why you can't do that? Now, it's interesting. You'd think the more you tie it on, the better, less chance it'll fall on Shabbat. But they say when it's tied on like that, it's obvious that you're doing it because you want to put a burden on the animal. And then it's already forbidden. So if you just have a saddle on the animal, tied on loosely or tied on in some way, but not fastened very securely under the belly of the animal or on the tail, which is the way they did it for carrying burdens, then it's okay. But if you did it in that way, then it seems clear you're doing it for the burden, and therefore it's a problem. Okay, so now, again, we started with the Mishnah about the Mirdat, and it seems like the whole issue we're going to talk about, that we're talking about now, is carrying it in public thoroughfare, right, or moving from private to public. This is considered, like Rashi, a masoi, and therefore you can't, right? And if it's, the issue is, if you tied it before Shabbat, it's okay. If you didn't tie it before Shabbat, then it's not okay, because then it becomes in the category of a burden, or it looks like a burden, looks like you're using it for the wrong reason. Okay, but if you tie it from before Shabbat, everybody agrees it's okay. Now we're going to have a question. Rav Asi bar Natami Rabbi Chia bar Rav Ashi. Ma'u litem mirdat al gabe chamor b'Shabbat. Let's say you're in your house, in your property, and it's not an issue of moving from reshut to reshut, from domain to domain. The issue here is a mirdat muktzah at all? Can you put the mirdat on your animal if you're in your private property? Let's say the animal's cold, and you want to put this saddlecloth on the animal in order to warm up the animal. Is that allowed? Amar lei mutar. He said, sure, there's no problem to put that on. That's allowed. The only issue is, right, again, you might think also, maybe we don't allow this because if we allow this, maybe the animal will walk out with it on Shabbat. So anyway, he says it's allowed. So Amar lei, v'chima ben zeh le'ukaf. Why is this different than a saddle? Now, the assumption of Rav Asi bar Natan's question is that a saddle is a problem. So ishti. Rav Chia bar Ashi doesn't answer him. So according to one reading of this Gemara, he doesn't answer him, and what happens? Rav Asi bar Natan, who asked the question, thinks he's not answering him because he thinks a ukaf is allowed. So when he said, what's the ritimah in a saddle? And he just doesn't even answer him, because what do you mean? Saddle's also allowed to put on the animal on Shabbat. So because he thinks that's what he says, he continues, that's what he thinks, because Rav Asi bar Natan thinks that Rav Chia bar Ashi thought that a saddle was allowed, he comes and he shows him, look, it's not allowed to put a saddle on. Eitive comes and brings difficulty from the following Tanaitic source. Ukaf sha'al gabeh chamor lo yitaltelenu biyado. It's muktzah. Okay, now we get into the muktzah issue. You can't carry an ukaf. Ella, so what do? Molicha u'mevi'ah b'chatzer v'hu nofel me'elav. Let's say you want to get the saddle off the animal. The animal comes back from a walk, had its saddle on it, or the animal's just walking around your property and the saddle's there, and you want to get it off. So you can't take it off because it's muktzah. So what do? You bring it into the chatzer, and the animal, moves around, and the ukaf falls off. That's how you can do it. So now they say, so comes Rav Asi bar Natan, he says, it's clear from this source, Hashta litol amart lo l'haniach mibaya. If you can't take it off the animal, of course you can't put it on the animal. So if you can't put on a saddle, comes Rav Asi bar Natan and says, then how can you put on the saddle cloth? He assumes they're one and the same. So now, interestingly, Rabbi Chia bar Ashi doesn't answer him. But Amrli Rabbi Zera pipes in and says, Shavke, leave him alone, stop bothering him with these questions. He holds like his rabbi, and that's why he thinks it's okay. Who's that? Okay, he passed down in the name of Rav, his rabbi. Tolim taskal lebehema b'Shabbat, v'kal v'chomer limerdat. You can tie on your animal a little basket around its neck and fill it with food. Okay, if you want to make it easier for your animal on Shabbat to eat, that the animal doesn't have to bend down, often they would do that. They would put something, this little basket around the animal's neck, and the animal just eats from there to make his life easier. So you can do that even on Shabbat. Okay, this traskal, it's not muktzah, it's not usher to put on. You can do that. But kavachomer lemerdat, why? Why is it a kavachomer that if you can do that, then you can do a saddlecloth? Ma hatam de mishum ta'anuk shaveh. There, it's just to make it easier for the animal. It's more pleasurable to be able to eat your food easily than go bend down and try to get it, right? We all know, I know in my house, I hate bending down to pick up all the things that everybody leaves on the floor and clean up your shoes. I don't want to bend down. It's not the biggest deal, but it's just easier if someone else, makes it easy for you. So Rav says, or they say about Rav, if Rav comes to Rabbi Zera and he says, if Rav allowed the traskal, all the more so to prevent the animal from suffering. If the animal's cold, of course you can put the saddle cloth on. So we started with this question. Remember, we started with the issue of going out in the public thoroughfare with the mirdat on, and that's only allowed if you tie it on before Shabbat. But now we've moved on to, can you actually put this cloth on the animal if the animal's going to stay within his own reshut, and it's not going to go out into reshut harabim, into the public space? Can you put it on? And then the issue becomes really, is it muktzah, or is it forbidden for some other reason? So comes Rav Chia bar Ashi and seems to indicate it's allowed, and we see that Rav says it's allowed, because if Rav allows this truskal, he obviously allows this, and that's why he didn't bother him about the saddle issue. Okay, now we're going to get back to, so now we're going to see that there's a debate about this truskal that we just mentioned. Shmuel Amar Mirdat Mutar Truskal Asur. Shmuel disagrees with Rav, surprisingly, and says that a mirdat is allowed to put on the saddle cloth. However, the truskal, just to make it easier for the animal to eat, that's forbidden. Rabbi Chia bar Yosef, Amar l'shmate to Rav Kabed to Shmuel. Now we have a funny interaction. Usually Rav and Shmuel, we see them acting with a lot of respect to each other, but here's an interesting one. So Rabbi Chia bar Yosef, so that's a different Rabbi Chia, he brought the teachings of Rav in front of Shmuel. Amar le, ihachi amar Abba. So Shmuel says, if this is what Abba said, Abba meaning Rav, it was a term of endearment. If this is what Rav said, okay, get ready for this one. Lo yada b'milei d'Shabbat v'lo klum. He clearly doesn't know anything about Shabbat. It seems very strange. In the beginning, he sounds like he's going to say something very respectful. Then he says he clearly doesn't know anything, and he gets very upset. He says, how could you possibly allow this? Kisalik Rabbi Zera. If you remember, Rabbi Zera went on Aliyah. We saw that story. He went to Eretz Yisrael against Rabbi Yehuda's wishes. When Rabbi Zera went to Eretz Yisrael, Eshkechele Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefet. Now we want to see what's going on in Israel on this issue. And he sees Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefet to Yati b'ka'amar l'mishmei to Rabbi Yochanan. When he gets there, he sees he was teaching in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Notnim mirdat al gabei chamor b'Shabbat. You can put the saddle cloth on, just like Rav and Shmuel both said. Amar le yasher v'chein tirgama or yochshe b'Bavel. So Rabbi Zera, coming from Bavel, says, wow, that's great that you say this. And not only that, but the lion in Bavel, the great leader, he also says the same thing. Ar Yochmanu, who's the lion in Bavel? Shmuel. So now they say, well, what do you mean Shmuel? V'harav nami amara. Rav also said that. So why is he saying it only in the name of Shmuel? Elashame to have a messiah be'an. They say, wait, we missed some of the details. What he then heard was that Rabbi Zera said, Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefet said, ve'ein tolim truskal b'Shabbat. You can put the saddle cloth, but you can't put this basket with food in it on Shabbat. And that is Shmuel's position and not Rav's position, because Rav allowed it. If you want to just make it easier, you can refer back to the sheet, and there's a chart there where it says what Rav says, Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan. So we're going to see that Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan say the same thing, that they both allow the mirdat, but they don't allow the truskal. Again, what do they distinguish between? Something that's preventing pain for the animal and something that's just making the animal's life easier. That we don't allow, but we do allow when it's causing pain to the animal. So then, now the story makes more sense that he said, oh, you hold like, the lion in Bavel said the same thing as you, which is Shmuel. That makes more sense now because he actually holds exclusively by Shmuel's position and not Rav. Now we're going to go back to the fact that they all allow the saddle cloth. So they now take a step back and they say, okay, we saw this machloka between them about the food utensil, whether we can allow things for just the pleasure of the animal or not. But now let's zoom out and let's go back to the fact that they all allow, forget about their debate, they all allow putting on the saddle cloth on Shabbat. So now they're going to say, back to the original question that Rav Asi asked, which was, Ma'ishna me'ukaf. Why is this different from a saddle? So what do they say? Shanehatan de'efshar denafil mimela. What did we see about the saddle? Remember, we talked about the saddle. If the animal walks around and you want to take the saddle off, you let the animal just shake it off. So you see that the saddle is not fastened on very securely. And that's why you can't put on a saddle, but you can put on, and therefore we're going to say, right, let's say, we talked about this earlier on, which is, let's say maybe the animal will walk out with this on Shabbat. Well, what did we learn? The saddle, you can't have the animal walk out with on Shabbat. And one of the reasons is because maybe it'll fall off, they're saying now. So therefore, if we're worried it's going to fall off, that's why we don't allow the ukaf, even in private space, because maybe the animal will walk into public space and it'll fall down and you'll pick it up. Rav Papa gives a different reason, which doesn't necessarily depend on if you're going to go out into the public, but even here, Kan lechamema, kan litzanina. There's a difference between why you put, this I mentioned earlier, some people put the saddle on the animal to prevent it from heat. So there's a difference, lechamema eat latzara, litzanina late latzara. Okay, now, right, certainly I live in Renana, it's incredibly hot in the summer, right? We always debate, would you rather have, I used to live in Jerusalem where it gets absolutely cold in the winter and all cold gets in the house and it's really freezing. You know, what's better, to be cold or to be hot, right? Which is more tolerable? So what did they say? If the animal's freezing, then he really needs to be heated up. That's really important. But to cool off the animal, if the animal's too hot, that's not such a big deal, and therefore we don't allow it. That's not really considered pain and suffering for the animal. Okay, again, those who might live in very hot climates might debate that issue, but anyway, that's what they say. Lechamema eat latzara. Now they're going to explain, and it could be what they're saying in this Gemara might be also the nature of animals and donkeys, particularly, is different. Their body temperature. Let's read. In order to warm it up, that's really litzara. If the animal's freezing, it really needs to be warmed up. But litzanina late latzara. But to cool it off, it's not such a big deal. It's not, if the animal's overheated, it's not so bad. Behind Udamre Inche, and this is what people say. It often comes up in the Gemara. They prove it by, right? Often we prove things from a pasuk in the Torah, or we prove it from a Tanaitic source. But once in a while, they bring in, oh, and this is what they say on the streets. So this is what people say, that even in the summer months, the donkey's actually cold. Okay, and therefore the donkey's body temperature is more likely to be cold than hot, and therefore we don't allow it if the animal is too hot, because that's very unlikely that even happens, and it doesn't really bother the animal also. Okay, next section, May today. Now we're going to bring a contradiction on Rav. So going back to, remember, Rav differs from Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan about the issue of the food. The utensil they would put around the animal's neck for food. Lo yetze hasus. We're now going to have a long list of other things about animals. And a horse can't go out bizanav shu'al with the tail of a wolf, a fox. Sorry, at the tail of a fox. Why would a horse have a tail of a fox on it? So we're going to see that the reason they would do it was for superstitious reasons. They would tie a foxtail on a horse for protection, and a lot of the things we're going to get into in these chapters about Hotza'ah is going to have to do with kameot, amulets, and all sorts of things that people will walk around with. Is that allowed? Is it not allowed? And it's going to come up in today's daf. And in fact, Shira and Chamutal and Daf Mishalanu in the Hebrew, they have a short video vlog. Their whole topic today was about amulets, and this week, and you should listen to it. It's very worth listening if your Hebrew's okay. Anyway, there's a lot of interesting questions about amulets and how much psychology plays a role in amulets. We're going to see this very soon. But, right, did they view amulets as actual healing, that it had healing power, or was it more superstitious and it was more in people's minds? And how does halacha view this is very fascinating. One of their main points they make, by the way, is that they claim that nowadays it took a very long time. It's only become recent that doctors actually consider, or people consider, how much psychology affects people's ability to heal, and that's a more modern concept. And what they suggest is that you can see that modern concept, actually the rabbis held by that also, because they showed how much people's psychological well-being was important, that if they had this amulet, that made them feel like they were going to be healed, and therefore it would work, and how much that that plays a role. So anyway, the sus can't go out with his anav shual, can't walk out with this amulet on, and not with a red string in between its eyes, right, like the red bendelot at the kotel. This is something totally different. We learned this about the zav, that he would put a little pouch to catch any discharge that would come out. The lo izim and not the goats. This is what we saw with the udders. Okay, this says can't go out with the udders. We're gonna have to get back to this. The lo para b'chasum shebefia. Okay, if you put a muzzle on a cow. The lo siachim b'traskalin shebefihem, and the young foals can't go out with a truskal. Oh, here you see it. They can't go out with a truskal. That's a contradiction to what we just saw with Rav. Livreshut harabim, right? They can't go out in the public space with this. Below behema b'sandal sheparagleha, and not an animal with wearing a sandal, some sort of shoe on its feet. V'lo b'kamiyah, and not with any type of amulet. Even if it's been proven to work. Okay, this is going to be a whole thing we're going to get into about whether an amulet's been proven that it works or not. And in these ways, the behema is more chamor than an adam. Okay, laws are more difficult because we're going to see that people are allowed to walk around with amulets. Okay, if they're proven to work. Okay, there's going to be a difference between ones that are proven and ones that aren't proven. If you put a bandage on its wound, if you put a splint for a broken bone, if it has an afterbirth that's hanging out from it, you can put a stopper in the bell on the animal, and it can walk around with that in the courtyard. You put the cock there because you didn't want it to make noise on Shabbat. Anyway, we're back to our issue. Katani miyat. Why did we quote this whole long Braita? The lo siachim b'tras kedin shebefiyam l'reshut harabim. What does that seem to indicate? L'reshut harabim hu delo. It sounds like they can't go out with the traskal into the public space. But what were we talking about? We weren't talking about in public. We were talking about in reshut hayachid. And what did Rav say? They can go in reshut hayachid with it. So it sounds like ha b'chatzer shapir dami. It could go out in the chatzer. Oh, sorry, my mistake. This would be against. Wait, why did I think it's against Rav? It should be against Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan, who didn't allow it, right? It sounds like you can go out with this traskal in the chatzer. So my la bigdolim when we shum ta'anug, isn't this bigdolim because it's pleasurable for them and it should be allowed? So they say lo bigtanim when we shum ta'al. No, you can say actually that this is actually for young ones. It's siachim. Notice, right? That's young animals, and for them it's actually okay. And Rashi explains their legs are long but their necks are short, and to get to the ground is very difficult, right? Like you think about, I complain about bending down, right? The older you get, the more difficult it is to bend down, right? For them, he's saying the young ones, the young, very young animals, for them it was very difficult to bend down, and therefore it's actually tza'ar. And that's how Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan would read this source. Daikanami de katane, and how do we further prove this? Because look at where it's next to in the Braita. It's near the kamea, Jumia de kamea, and the kamea was for, again, you people will wear these amulets for health reasons. So basically, we're going to assume this is for health reasons and not just to make the animal's life easier. And therefore, it's not a contradiction to Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, Amar Mar. Now we're going to go back to parts of this Braita and go more in depth. This is what happens when the Gemara brings a Braita because they want to ask a question. Often they bring the whole Braita, and then once they bring the whole Braita, they now go into details about different parts of the Braita. So below the kamiyah afal pishu hu mumche. But didn't it say in the Mishnah? Doesn't it say in the Mishnah further on? And this is going to be what I mentioned before about a person. Below the kamiyah she'eno mumche. A person can't go out with a kamiyah, an amulet. It hasn't been proven that it works. Okay, now you're thinking, what does it mean to be proven that an amulet works, right? How do we ever know these things work? But they believe that you could actually, if someone was sick, use this amulet 3 times and it worked, that would prove, we'll talk about later when we get to this Mishnah, what actually it means by an amulet that's proven to work or not. But let's just assume right now that there's amulets that have been proven to work and amulets that have not been proven to work. Now, what did it say in the Braita? Even if the kameha is proven it works, the animal can't go out on Shabbat with it. So now the Gemara says, but a person can, because it says, below kamiyah she'eno mumche, which would imply ha mumche shapir dami. A person is allowed to walk out with an amulet that's proven to work. So the Gemara answers a very strange answer. Hachinami she'eno mumche. Here also we're going to say it's a case where it's not mumche. So now they say, what do you mean? How could you say it's not mumche? It says explicitly, even if it's not mumche. So what do they answer? What it means is mumche la'adam ve'eno mumche la'behima. It's an amulet that's been proven to work for a person, but when it says afa pishu mumche, even if it's been proven to work for a person, but it hasn't yet been proven to work for the animal. So now they say, could there be such a thing? So they say, yeah, very, very likely. In Adam, and here's very interesting about these amulets. Adam de'itle mazala misayele. Behema de'itle mazala lo misayele. Humans have mazal. We'll have to talk about what this means exactly. And because of that, an amulet can work for a person, but since the animals don't have a mazal, therefore the same amulet might not work for an animal. What does this mean? Various explanations are brought. Rashi talks about what's a mazal. A mazal means an advocate in Shamayim. Humans have malachim, angels that go out to bat for them, and animals don't. And so now you view the amulet works because it's got an angel up in heaven that's kind of working with the amulet and is going to help it to work for you. Some others say, the Meiri talks about the psychological aspect, and that humans, and this goes back to the psychology, since humans believe that the amulet can work, it actually works for them. But animals, since they don't have data to understand what an amulet is, so the amulet doesn't work for them because it's psychological in nature, which is very fascinating. So anyway, they say, so what do we mean when we say a kamiyah, even if it's mumcha? Even if it's mumcha for a human, but not an animal. So they're still going to have problems with that, because now go back to the Breita. The Breita said, Zech chomer b'behema mi ba'adam. This is chamor. This shows the behema is a more chamor din than a human. Now, if you say that the amulet wasn't proven on an animal, then it's actually really the same. Because then the Adam can't go out with an amulet that wasn't proven to work for him, and the animal can't go out with an amulet that wasn't proven to work for him. So, it's actually really the same in the end. So they say, who says that line is referring to the kameh? Sandal kai. You could say it's referring to the line about the sandal. We can walk out with shoes on, if that's considered a beged for us, right? That's our clothing. But an animal can't walk out with a sandal on, and that's what that line was referring to, and it's not referring to the kameh. And in the end, the kameh really is the same law, that if it's not proven to work for you specifically, meaning you the person or you the animal, you can't walk out. Okay, now we're going to bring questions on Rav Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan and what they all agree about the mirdad is mutar. So now we're going to have a few questions about this. Our assumption that the reason you can put the saddlecloth on the animal is because the animal is suffering, because it's cold, and we're allowed to protect the animal from suffering. So now they're going to bring some sources which seem to say we actually can't do things for medicinal purposes for an animal. If you have a wound, you can put oil on it if you're a person, or you can scrape off a wound, but you can't do that for an animal. Isn't that because we assume it's, when it says we assume there's a wound, and it's because it's painful for the animal, and yet we don't allow it. So how do we allow this putting on the saddlecloth? So the Gemara answers, lo, de gamar maka umishum ta'anug. It's actually after the wound is healed, then you're not allowed to do it for the animal, because it's just really extra pleasure. It's just nice for the animal, but it's not actually. If it really was wounded, then you'd be allowed to do it. Next source that contradicts all those opinions. Behemash tashma. Behemash achazad dam. The animal has a fever, you can't put it in water to cool it down. Adam shachazodam, but if you have a person who has a fever, you can put him in water in order to cool down the fever. So why is this allowed for a human, not an animal? It sounds like also tsar for an animal, we don't allow it. So Amar Ula, gzera mishum shchikat samimani. Ula says the reason why we don't allow this is because of you might come to grind up. Okay, this is the whole issue of medicine comes down to this. We don't allow medicines because we're worried that you might come to grind up medicine, right? They use herbs just like we do now. Just now we usually have it in a pill form or something like that. We get it from a pharmacy, but they would grind their own. And we're worried if we allow you to do this for medicine, you might come to grind on Shabbat, and that's a tolada of tochen, of grinding, and therefore we don't allow it. It's not a tolada, it's the malacha of grinding. So ihachi, they say, wait a minute, if you don't allow the animal to cool off because it's rifu'ah, then we shouldn't allow a human either. So Adam Nami. So they say, Adam nir'eh kimeka. We're not worried. Now, what's the issue? The issue is if somebody sees you doing this, they'll say, oh, you can do things for medicine on Shabbat, and therefore we'll come to grind our herbs up to create a medicine. So if you see a person going in the water, even if they have fever, you won't necessarily think they're going in the water because of their fever for medicinal purposes. You'll think they're going just to cool off. But so they say that's why we're not worried about it, a human, but an animal we are. So they say, but you could say the animal's going in the water to cool off. No, animals don't do that. Whether this is true or not, it seems to me a little bit strange because animals do go in the water to cool off. Maybe it depends on what type of animal. Maybe some animals, right, don't like the water, and maybe they're talking about those. But an animal would normally do that, and the only reason an animal would be doing it was for medicinal purposes, and that's why an animal is different from a human, because someone might see the animal and say, medicine's allowed, therefore I'm going to go grind up my spices, my herbs. So now they say, wait a minute. Ula behemami gazrinan. Do we really make a gzera when it comes to animals? Right? Generally, we're not worried about gzerot when it comes to animals. So we did talk about shvitat behema, but we didn't necessarily talk about things when it came to animals. V'hatanya, doesn't it say in a Braita, Hayta omedet chutz latchum, korela v'hiba. If the animal was standing outside the tomb, you're allowed to call the animal and the animal will come. The lo gazrinan dilma ati latuye. But we don't make a gezerah, maybe you're going to end up going outside the tomb, right? Your animal's outside. You could think theoretically you might accidentally go outside the tomb. We're not worried about that. So if you can call the animal to come, we see we're not gozer dilma ati latuye. So why are we gozer? Because of this issue of shlikat samim mani. So Amar Ravina, that case is kigon she'atchum shalam uvla b'tchum shalom. The tchum we were talking about, the animal was outside its own tchum, but not outside the person's tchum, right? The animal was in one place at the beginning of Shabbat, and the owner was somewhere else, and they each have a different tchum, and that's why. It's not that we're not worried. We would be worried about making a gzera in that case, and therefore don't ask from there. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar, now there's just an aside about this. Shchikat samanim gufa tanai. The whole issue of shchikat samanim, this whole gzera, is actually in and of itself a machloket tanaim. The animal ate vetch and it's got stomach issues. You can't run it around the chatzer in order for it to loosen up the stuff. Rabbi Yoshaya matir. So here you see whether or not you worry about shchikat samanim by an animal is a debate among Tanaim. Darish Rava halacha ki Rabbi Yoshaya. He actually holds that we paskin like Rabbi Yoshaya. Amar. Lo yetze hazav bakishalo, v'lo izim bakisha b'dadehem. I said we were going to get back to this izim bakisha b'dadehem because v'hatanya yotzot izim bakisha b'dadehem. And we saw this in the Mishnah also, that the izim, the goats, can't go, right? It said in the Braita we just read, they can't go out with their udders bound, but it says in the Braita they do go out with their udders tied. And said on our Mishnah also. So Amar Rav Yehuda, we're going to have three answers to this question. I also charted them out. Lo kasya. Hademi hadek, hadelo mihadek. If they're very tightly, if it's tied tightly, then it's okay. And if it's not tied tightly, loosely, then it's a problem. So let me just check for a second. Right. If they're tied very tightly, then we're not worried that it's going to fall and we'll come to tie it again. Okay. Some people talk about the issue here has to do with kshira, tying knots on Shabbat, and some other things, but we're going to just assume it's talking about hotza'ah. Rav Yosef Amar. So Rav Yosef says, wait a minute, you're trying to resolve this contradiction by saying it's different realities in each Braita, but that makes no sense. Tanai shakalt me'alma, what, did you just leave all the Tanaim aside? We already know, Tanaihi, it's a machloket Tanaim, whether or not you can do this. Ditnan, as it says in our Mishnah, hayizim yotzot tzrurot, Rabbi Yossi omer b'kulan chutz min harachelot hakfunot. Rabbi Yehuda omer yizim yotzot tzrurot liyabesh avalo lechalev. Right? We already saw that there's a machloket about whether this is allowed or whether it's not allowed. So we could just say that these two Braita reflect different opinions. V'ibay dema. Alternatively, third option is to say ha v'ha Rabbi Yehuda. Both agree with Rabbi Yehuda. Kan liyabesh, kan lechalev. Rabbi Yehuda made a distinction between why you're tying them. So maybe the distinction between these two Braitot are, one is if you're tying them liyabesh, and that's why you can't go out with it. And one is, you can go out with it. And one is lechalev, which is you can't go out with it if it's lechalev. Tanya. Amar Rabbi Yehuda ma'aseh be'izim beit Antiochia shayu dadehen gasim v'asu lahem kisim kedei shelo yisretu dadehen. Now there's a Braita which shows that Rabbi Yehuda said there was a case in Beit Antiochia where they were very large, and because they were so large, there was a concern that they would get scraped by things, and they actually put these kisim on in order so that they don't get scraped. And then it was allowed because it was protecting the animal. Again, it comes into the context of sa'ar. Is it painful for the animal? Okay, now we're going to end the daf with a bunch of very strange things. Okay, be prepared for the source because I don't really know what to make of it. Tanu Rabbanan, Maseh echad shemeta ishto. There was a person whose wife died. V'nicha ben linach, and there was a baby that needed nursing. Below hayalos schar medikal litain. Didn't have any money to hire a nursemaid. V'nasa lo nes v'niftuchu lo dadim k'shnei dadei isha v'hiniket beno. A miracle happened. He got breast like a woman, and he was able to milk his child. Okay, a very strange story. What to make of it, I don't really know. We're going to see what the rabbis make of it and why this is here. I mean, obviously, we're talking about udders and milking and all that, but a little bit strange. I'm not really sure what the rabbis are trying to tell us. So Amar of Yosef, Bo Re'eh, okay, maybe this is what the rabbis are trying to tell us, but again, it's a very strange story. Bo Re'eh kama gadol adam zeh shenasa lo nes kazeh. When you see here the story, the thing you think of immediately is this must have been an unbelievable person because what a crazy miracle happened to him. Amar le Abaye, Adrabah, Abaye says this is the absolute opposite. Kama garua adam zeh shenishtanu lo sidrei bereshit, right? The nature was totally flipped on its side, and that's a horrible thing to have happened to someone. Amar Rav Yehuda, Bo Re'eh, you see all the different reactions to the story that it got out of people. Bo Re'eh kama kashim mezonotav shel adam shenishtanu alav sidrei bereshit. And Amar Rav Nachman, I'll just read on and I'll explain. Teda de midrachish nisa v'lo ivru mizone. There were two potential miracles that could have happened here. They could have created, found food for the baby to eat, or, a nursemaid, or he could have grown breasts. Now, what would be the easier one to do? You would think to magically find a nursemaid, not to have him grow breasts, that would have milk. And then, so basically, he says, this shows how difficult parnasa is, that it's almost easier to grow breasts for a man and that can milk a baby than actually to find food. And it's a way of showing it's really, we relate to people who are struggling with their parnasa. Okay, another strange story. He married a woman who didn't have a hand. He didn't realize until she died. I was thinking this is sometimes, again, it's an exaggerated story to get across a message. Sometimes until people die, we don't actually see certain things about them, right? And it's only on their death that we learn all these things about what the person did. And it's almost telling you, open your eyes when the people are still alive and appreciate all the things about them, rather than wait till, after their death to find out about them. Amarav, Bo Re'eh kama tznuah isha zo. So Rav says, this shows how tznuah she was. Shelo hikir ba'ala, that she hid this from her husband. Amar lo Rabbi Chia, zodar kapakaf. What do you mean? She didn't have a hand. She was obviously trying to hide that from her husband. Ela kama tznuah adam zeh shelo hikir b'ishto. It actually shows how tznuah he was, that he saw she was covering something up and he didn't push her about it, and he let her have her space, which is also a nice message. Again, these stories are very strange. What to do with them, one can think about it. Okay, last part for today is Charim Yotzim Levuvim. So my Levuvim, what is Levuvim? Amar Apuna Totre. Totre means they were, Rashi says, they were tied two in a pair. Okay, they were tied two together so they don't get lost. My mashma the high Levuvim lishna de kuruvehu. How do you know Levuvim means together? Dichtiv libavtani achoti kala in shir hashirim. And it's about, you got close to me. Ulamar, second explanation, or shekoshlim lahem keneged libam kedei shelo yiplu alehem zeivim. Again, it was an amulet type of thing so that the wolves didn't get them. So now they say, wait, only the zcharim can go out with this protection. What about the poor females? Zcharim, zeivim, zcharim nafle, and the kevot lo nafle. And here we get into all sorts of interesting things about the difference between the male and the females. What, you think the wolves only attack the males, not the females? So they say, yeah, mishum gemasku b'reish adra. The men always go out first, right? They're the tough ones. They're the front. They go out first, and that's why. So then they say, what do you mean? Zeivim b'reish adra nafle, b'sof adra lo nafle. What? Wolves only attack the back of the pack. They don't attack the front of the pack. Ela mishum deshamne. They're fatter. That's why the Zeivim like the men. Men are generally fatter than the females, the males. So now they say, wait, what? There's no overweight, there's no nice round female animals. The two, all the more so, how did they know distinguish between the males and the females? So they say that the males walk around standing tall and they look from side to side and they look more suspicious and they scare the wolves more, and therefore the wolves attack them. In other words, it's the way their behavior is an indication, and this right shows, well, men behave differently than women. There's a whole interesting, you could do something with this. Anyway, okay. Last one, third explanation of these levuvim is they would put something by their male organs to prevent them from mating. Mimai, how do you know this? Well, the katani seifa rechilim yotzot shechuzot, that also has to do with mating, although it's the opposite. They tie their tails up to invite the males from mating. And therefore they say, Reisha Kadesh Lo Ya'alu Ala Nekevot and Sefer Kadesh Ya'alu Alehen. So they're basically saying these things are both having to do with male, with mating. Okay, one is to prevent and one is to encourage, but both have to do with it. My mashma dahai shchuzot lishna digiluehu. How do you know that that's what shchuzot means? Dichtiv hinei yisha lekrato. It's a pasuk from Mishlei. Shit zona unitzuat lev. So they say shchuzot is a notrikon. It's like a combination of these words. Shit zona unitzuat lev comes out to shchuzot if you kind of merge a bunch of the letters together, and that's showing promiscuity, and therefore that's what it means, that she's basically lifting her tail in order, tying the female's tail in order to induce mating, and that explains that. So we have three different explanations of livavtani, about livuvim. Just to point out, the first and the last are the opposite. The first one was lekarev, they tie them together, and the second was lirachet, to distance it from the females, right? It would cover its sexual organ in order to prevent it from mating. And then the middle one was something totally different, which was just an amulet. Okay, we'll stop here for today.